Welcome to Healing Lives with Corey Gilbert, a podcast sponsored by the Healing Lives Center. Discover how to love and lead your family well and biblically. God created sex, marriage, and the family for our stewardship, growth, and benefit. My heart and passion is to teach, train, educate, and disciple Christians that want strong marriages and families. The Healing Lives Center has been serving Christians since the year 2000. Its mission is to be a center for sex, trauma, and marriage education and transformation, where we offer counseling, coaching, courses, and speaking services to you, your church, or ministry. Check us out at healinglives.com. Welcome. This is Corey Gilbert, and we are here interviewing and having a conversation with Tanya Gioia. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, Corey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about you and your work and your passion, your heart, as we kind of jump in today.
Absolutely. I work with women who are supporting loved ones around addictive behaviors. So we're empowering them to take their lives back so that they can take their family lives back from addiction. And it is super rewarding. I think I maybe told you that the saying, and this is not mine, I wish it were, give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Teach a woman to fish, and she teaches the community. So coming in at that root and saying, you don't have to give up on your husband, your son, your daughter, your sister, your whoever. There are a lot of things that you can do to make changes, because this is the forgotten group of people. And so I work with those women on sometimes refinding themselves, filling their cup, and empowering them to do things like set boundaries, figure out clarity on where they want to be, and be intentional about their family. Because as you well know, families don't get sick on purpose, right?
Yep.
But they have to get well intentionally. They have to make the effort to do that.
So then what are some of the challenges you've seen over the years working with women who are trying to support that loved one?
There is everything from, I've given, the classic Hollywood, I've given him the best years of my life and he doesn't return anything to me, or, man, I really took care of that child and what happened? Where did I go wrong? A lot of self-blame and shame. Yep. And when we as you well know, when we lay that cover over ourselves, it's really hard to see the realities that other people made choices and that you have choices you can make too.
Then, so what got you into doing this kind of work with women?
Well, I have my own story, and the short factor of that is I divorced because I thought, there's something better out there. I married a man that I'll have been married to for 20 years at the end of this month. Nice. But we had some really trying times in the middle. And what I didn't realize was I knew very little about addiction, but I didn't realize how sick I was that I chose somebody who was in active addiction. I was taking my broken pieces and his broken pieces, and we were trying to make a whole. And you, of course, know how well that works. And then the next phase of that, I thought after we saw that, we're good, everything's going to be okay, kids are going to be okay. And we took our kids on this journey. But the next phase of that was when my son hit about 13 and became 6 foot tall, sounded like a man, looked like a man. All those things re-triggered. I was not as healed as I thought I was. So that sent me crawling literally back to EMDR, doing that really deep work. And I am really proud to say that that boy graduated from high school, all-star football player, just a wonderful human being, not because I forced him to be a wonderful human being, which was kind of which was truly where I was heading, but because I grew up and I wasn't playing teenager at the same time that he was supposed to be emotionally and physically a teenager.
That's huge. The role you played in the way you just said that of you being a teenager, but not really an actual teenager, is the acting out, and then that maturity. Who I guess spoke into your life during that season, or what kind of person or people spoke into your life?
Wow, we had some really great people speaking into our lives. So I really must commend our church, Kremlin Community Church at the time in Kremlin, Colorado. When my husband and I were going through our crisis and 23 months separation and what I call courts, cops, and chickens,
Ooh.
we they hugged us, loved on us, said, "We still believe you are really good people, even though your lives are falling apart, and we want to be there for you." So they made a lot of things possible, especially in if you've got listeners who live in small towns, this could have been a real crisis because everybody knew our business. And a lot of people did say, when you get this figured out, we'll talk to you again. But our church loved on us. Our pastor really loved on us. And then we also, this is a piece of work that's not out there anymore. We also worked with some Christian counselors who did Jeff Van Vonderen's Wounded by Shame, Healed by Grace work, which is a Christian piece of work. And if you can find it out there, I would highly recommend it. Okay. It really talks about shame-based families and how we act out of shame, not realizing it, and that Jesus has come and given us this beautiful gift. And instead of surrendering our burdens there, we push it away and say, no, I'm not good enough for that. So his work was really pivotal. Those were Christian counselors based in our town. And then the other thing that happened that was fantastic was there were strong old-time couples in our AA group, and we invited them over for dinner. I mean, we sought them out. They didn't suddenly show up at our door, but we sought them out, invited them over for dinner, and we said, okay, we don't get it. And we know we don't get it. So tell us what's happening with you. How did you work through this? You've got what we want. How did you do that? So we searched. And then the other piece that happened was a commitment that said we can work this out, even though for the first 12 months, we really couldn't be in the same room.
Ooh. Oh, that's scary, actually, to see how fragile our relationships can be, our marriages, our families.
Fragile is not. It is. It's like that egg on the spoon. You've ever played that game where you're trying to pass that across, and they really are that fragile, and we take them so much for granted and say, if you would just get your life together, then my life will be okay. And it's not true.
And that's where we have to, and this is the hardest part in counseling and coaching families, is you're responsible for your part, only your part. I can't make the other person want to be healed. But then where do you draw that boundary? Where do you say enough's enough? Or where do you say, hey, I expect more? This gets messy, messy, messy. And what I see is a lot of people settle for just almost a mediocre relationship. We might even stay together, but we're just barely functioning. And that's heartbreaking too, because that's not honoring to God. It's not good for either of the two parties. So I hear the church, I hear the pastor, I hear Christian counselors, a good program you mentioned, like a good teaching on shame. That's tremendous, I believe. Any other? Actually, you also mentioned then like an older couples.
Older couples, and that's one thing that if people are listening to this, encourage your church to set up mentor couples. We don't have to do this by ourselves. And there are programs out there that can teach your church how to do it. The thing that we became as we started moving after this happened, I think it was within a year. It's been a while since I've thought about it, is our church and 3 other churches started a Celebrate Recovery group. And we were selected as some of the delegates to go out to Saddleback Church and look at what that really looked like and bring that back home. So not only were we loved on, we were actually respected as human beings and respected that we had gifts and talents. We weren't just said, oh, you guys can't figure your lives out and we don't need you. So that shift. And like you said, what do you do? And I can label out that I've done everything. I have yelled, screamed, begged, cried, withheld, shifted account money, shotguns off in the backyard, called the friends, called the neighbors, called everybody about that. And that doesn't tell you anything except for that I was parenting my husband instead
Mm-hmm.
of partnering him.
Yep.
And as you well know, Dr. Corey, that
Yeah.
is going to get me absolutely nowhere, because what I had come to learn is men's love language is a lot about respect. And I had no respect when I was, a lot of people would say, well, you're fighting for your life and you're fighting for your family. Yes, but I'm fighting in such a way that even God can't see me. It's an imposter
Mm-hmm.
style syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
It's control. I'm trying
it's
to grasp for
control.
control. Yeah.
I was handling it instead of saying, God, I need to surrender because I can't do this.
Well, how do you respect your husband when he is not being respectable?
That's a hard one. But that's the total scripture passage of show respect by your actions, even when,
Yep.
and it doesn't just have to be a husband, it can be child or
Anyone.
family member
Yep.
or parent or whoever. Even when they're doing that, you can always be respectful. You might not always be respected, and I'm sure you would agree that you need to draw boundaries for your safety, your
Right.
sanity, all of those things,
Right.
but I can still be respectful, and I wasn't. I mean, who wants to meet their wife at the door at midnight when she's double hipping? I'm going, and I had some choice words
Yep. Yep.
about where have you been and what have you been doing and who have you been doing it with. I've called all your friends. You know,
Yep.
that that's just it's emasculating and it's infantilizing him. Did I get that
Yep.
word right?
Yeah. Yep. That's a good word.
And what I learned was, and it hit home. I didn't learn it well enough with my husband, because you always think I didn't have responsibility for raising my husband, right?
Well, just kidding.
Yeah, the blame can keep rolling
Yeah.
downhill. I can take no response. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is his family, his mom, his grandma, his whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when that child that you have loved and nurtured and prayed for and cared and all of that is just a person that is like nails on a chalkboard to you, where you are just losing your mind looking at them,
Yeah.
you're like, wait, I had a lot to do with this.
Yeah.
I need to figure out where the issues are. And I think I shared this with you when we talked earlier. My son was really struggling, and we had him in counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And the counselor came to me and she said, Tanya, your house is not safe for him to do the deep work in.
Oof.
And I went, it's kind of like the sword in Mary's heart. I'm like, wow. Not that Mary did anything wrong, but that piercing went so deep to the marrow that I went, okay, pick me, because
So you
I'm the
listened.
next one in line.
So you listened eventually.
Yes.
Eventually.
I
Oh,
heard it right away, because you know how in a family there's often somebody who feels the pain of the
mhm.
family.
Yeah.
I'm not always that person, but I was at that moment that person. And I knew the pain was deep enough that somebody had to step up and say, I'll take the medicine. I will be willing to. Have you ever had an infection where you have to keep peeling off the bandages and knocking off the scabs and
Nope.
oozing out the infection?
Yeah.
There's a picture for you. So we used to run horses and dogs and chickens and all that stuff. That the infection was that
Mhm.
stinky, smelly, awful,
Yeah.
like Lazarus must have smelled when he
Yep.
came to the tomb 3 days later.
Yeah.
So I was tired of stinking,
Yeah.
really, more than anything.
Hmm. But it's neat that you listened at that point when they said that, because I even think of that word, your home is not safe. I mean, most of us would react in very quite violent ways What
Yeah.
do you mean it's not safe? How dare you say
Mm.
that? How dare you judge me? But actually, if we're coming with a spirit of uh, desiring to bring about unity and grow, and that's actually the loving thing to do is say, hey, we need to do some work here beyond, and that's where it gets into systems theory. The idea
Yeah.
that when you change one thing, the whole has to change. You take a child and take them out and they do counseling, but if they go back to the same system, they go back to the old self. As in, we need to work with the whole system, which is really, really important.
Absolutely. And that's what I would say about my work. And for
Hmm.
any parent out there listening, it was the Holy Spirit speaking for one thing. And this was not only a highly recommended trained therapist, I trusted her. I mean, we had
Good.
had some family sessions, so I trust her.
Good.
She didn't come up and say this to me overnight.
Yeah.
She spoke into our lives little by little
Love
and
that.
then loved on us. Again, she loved on us, but also the Holy Spirit said, you can't continue
Right.
like this. And that's some of the work that I do with the families around addiction is exactly what you said is I changed
Hmm.
and my son changed. I mean, we were at the point. I like to say our house was physically safe, but we were on the edge of
Right.
it not being physically safe. And you know, as your kind of standard middle class soccer mom, husband working, me working part time, two kids, you know, participating in the PTA, I looked like everything was fine, but drywall was being knocked out of the walls, you know, and children were out of control. But who was really out of control?
Ouch.
You know, when I am calling this precious child that I dearly wanted
Mhm.
and love and think the world of, when I'm using character assassination and ugly names, who's out of control? I'm the one who is the adult. And and I was 45 by this time. So this is not 20-year-old without any skills.
Yeah.
I have a lot of skills in education. Totally out of control.
Yeah. So then what led to the chaos in your marriage to then where you are today? We've talked about some of the key people that kind of influenced you. What were some of the key things you did to find a new us, a new self, a new family, new marriage, same people, but new us?
So here's something that as I look back on it, it's hard to look at, but realizing this was God at work too. So when we had our final breakdown and were separated by a court order, we also had a full restraining order and complete silence other than texting about the children for over 3 months.
Oof.
That was necessary.
Hmm.
That was really necessary. Even my mother calls me a talker. So I believe that we could just talk it out, right? We'll just
Yeah.
talk it out, talk it out, talk it out, talk it out. Well, who am I not listening to when I'm talking all the time? And I have a tendency to ready, fire, aim. In fact, I called the therapist that we had worked with years prior, said, can you work with us? Can you work with us? He's like, Tanya, with what's going on in your life, you guys need to do your separate stuff. I am screaming at this man that he is killing our marriage, that it's
Oh,
going to be
no.
crushed, that this is not going to happen. So that quiet time and the
Hmm.
living apart was a necessary piece designed by God for this to happen. I truly believe that. So if you are going through a separation right now, don't give up hope.
Yep.
We went 23 months. We did, after 12 months, we were able to counsel together and we did do that. But so we both did our separate work. That's the first piece because I can't heal him and he can't heal me.
Hmm.
Then we did work together and then we didn't stop.
Yep.
That's about shortly after that is when we helped build the Celebrate Recovery, which
Mhm.
which not only gave us tool, but it gave us something to do with our hands
Yeah.
together,
Love,
right?
love that. The timing of that's neat. Amazing.
It is. We were doing that together. And then the next phase was also to say, you know what? this is where Jerry Maguire and I part ways. You know? If you've seen that movie, it's the whole, you had me at hello and you complete me. No, that's where we had to come up with, you don't complete me. We are better together. We are designed as two wholes that make something wholly together as a new entity, but you don't complete me. So I need to maintain my health and my self-care. You need to maintain your health and your self-care. So we both maintain Al-Anon AA affiliations, and then the Celebrate Recovery affiliations. And then as we had a move in there too, which oddly enough, moves can bring you together, even though it is stressful. And then when this happened with my first child, then I went into the deep EMDR. And along the way, I sprinkled in women's retreats and different 10-day silent retreats, kept reading books, kept looking at things. This is, and I think you would agree with this, Dr. Corey, this is a lifetime of growth. This isn't a one and done.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to make sure people really understand that, especially when working with someone like you or I. We're a guide and we kind of help hold your hand for a few minutes or for a few weeks or a few months even, but then we let go because our journey's over with you because someone else needs to pick it up from there. Other times we've given you what you need for the season, and so someone else picks it up. But the truth is there's always someone else, not necessarily a paid person, but that's where the groups are incredible. The groups at church, your own small group where you're not necessarily sharing your own muck, but a small group at church where you're just learning about, a chapter of the Bible or something. But you've got your people. Those pieces are critical. What are some things you do then, if thinking of like that word self-care? What do you do to take care of yourself?
I really appreciate that. So I've been learning about self-care and self-compassion.
Okay.
And they're different. One is an activity and one is the way you actually feel about yourself and that kindness towards self. So I would say the past 6-7 years, I've really been working on the mean girl in my head. And talking back to her and telling her, hey, I can take care of you. It's all right. We don't have to blow up like this, and you don't have to panic, because normally she's mean because she's trying to take care of me in some capacity, in the way that she knows how to do that. So that self-talk I've really been working on. I have a spiritual director that I meet with about monthly to talk about the things that are going on in my life. A key component for me for probably I've been doing it for over 20 years, but consistently for the last 6-7 years, especially when I picked up EMDR, was returning to centering prayer. Okay. And centering prayer is a meditation movement that is Christ-centered. So we don't have to hop off into Buddhism or Hinduism to do that. Meditation was part of St. Augustine, part of the monk life. It was part of it. It's not.
It got hijacked, so
it got hijacked, right? And Judaism has its own. The base we came from. Judaism has its own. What do we see Christ doing? Christ goes off and he spends time with the Father alone. So I do that every morning, and I can tell you when I miss it. I can tell you that things aren't going well. I was on a 10-day silent retreat, and a woman there. Just a lot of trouble in her life between twin sons and some disabilities in there, and her husband losing his job and all kinds of other things. And she said, I had been practicing for twice a day for this many years, and then things got so busy I just couldn't I think there was other illness in the family too. She said that carried me through for 5 years until I could practice again. So it's like this storehouse of mental quiet. So I do that. That is crucial to me. Bible reading, some type of scripture is crucial to me. My church community, and I am an active person in Celebrate Recovery. I've got the coins around here somewhere. I've got 20 years in, and a lot of people quit going. And what I found was there are seasons where you may need to drop because of things that are going on in your life, but this is a group that you can always return to. And then another key piece that I'm coming to find is rest and recovery. for some reason, we've gotten this mythology that we can drive, and we're supposed to always have something to do. So this rest and recovery has come in the form, thanks to my husband and some other people, of camping. I have fallen in love with camping, and I try and go someplace where there is no cell signal, where there's nothing, where I can be outside and talk about an amazing artist. God is amazing.
Yep. That's wonderful. I love that. I know I have mixed feelings about self-care because of where I feel like it's gone off the deep end in this day and age, where it's very self-centered, very, well, all about me and not about others. And so, to me, as a Christian, as a believer, I'm here to serve others, but there is a balance between the two. So anything can be taken too far. I remember at one point our pastor even saying, some of you need to stop going to your 16 Bible studies and actually put this into practice and do something. And I'm like, that's so true too. It's good things, but sometimes the good can be not the best, if you will. You're settling. So I love that you're still involved in celebrity recovery, that you're actually active. Those are things you mentioned before, horses too. So do you still do that or not?
So we traded our horses. I have mixed feelings about this. We traded our horses for dirt bikes.
Oh no, that's good. I like that one.
So that's where the 40-foot toy hauler and 4 dirt bikes came in. But this was my husband, and for people who are listening to some podcast, I'm doing the DS, thing with my thumbs. My husband said, Tanya, the best opportunity we have to keep our sons connected to us and off their phones, at least for a period of time, is to get out there camping, get out there dirt biking, get out there and doing that. And that's actually for my son's senior trip. That's what we did. Went down to Lake Powell, went to some other places in Utah. Now, I ride and I really like it.
Nice.
But I did say something blasphemous to my men. At one point, I looked at them and I said, I just don't need to go everywhere I can as absolutely fast as I can. And all 3 heads swiveled around like I had, I'd grown horns and, was just this crazy person. So we do sometimes do separate things on the bikes because I'm kind of a tourer. I like to go see the wild horses and see the trees and the plants, and we ride in the desert and I stop and I walk around. They're all about the hills.
And fast. Hills and fast. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that. I know I grew up camping. I grew up in South America and grew up camping in the Andes Mountains with my parents, and incredible memories there, but it was once a year. And so it's neat to see. I ended up 12 years ago starting with Boy Scouts with my sons. So now we're in the 12th year. My oldest just finished his Eagle project.
Wow.
And we get to go camping almost every month year round. So like my favorite camping is in the mountains, December, January, February, the cold, rainy, we're in Oregon. I love it. Because it's something about being outside, not on devices, with people around a campfire, people you like, people you want to get to know more, about their lives. And so the dads and these boys, it's incredible. And that's not for everyone. I know that's why I would not have guessed about the dirt bikes for you guys. That's awesome. Are the kids all gone?
No. So the 18-year-old is taking a gap year, and he's going to work and kind of sort out what he wants to do next. And then I've got a 16-year-old. Both of them have been 3 sports: dirt bikes in the summer, skiing in the winter. If we can get them outside, we're putting them outside. Now, I must tell you, for all those people, they do have phones. They do watch YouTube. They do those traditional at their age things. We wish they didn't. But as a parent, this, you do as much as you can. And then you have to let them live their story.
And so you have a 16-year still at home. What do you think is going to change when both of them are gone for you two?
That we're looking at. So we have not worked location bound for probably the last 4 or 5 years.
Nice.
So there has been no reason for us to be in the small town that we're in, except for we're an hour and a half from the desert and 45 minutes from the ski mountain.
Nice.
ideal, actually. And I don't know.
It's exciting, I think.
It is. I think it's very exciting. I really like to travel. Husband, not so much.
Yay,
And
the
I
differences.
yes,
God's sense
yes.
of humor.
Well, do you want to know what's even funnier? He doesn't care for travel, but when he started his trucking company, he got in the truck and went everywhere across the United States. He's been to more states than I have.
How
But when you're
funny.
working like that, it's not like, oh, I'm going to see the arch or I'm over here
Yep,
seeing Capitol Hill. You're
yep,
actually
yep.
working. So he'll say they're not the same. But
Yep.
I'm like, really? I'm the one. I wanted to travel. But what what I'm looking at is I have really focused on having my feet under the dinner table every night. I am not gone. This is part of my mission work. These are my two not so
Yep,
little sheep
yep.
anymore. When they go, I want both the ability to go and visit them, but I also want to do the things that I don't feel are as important for me right now. Like you were speaking at the
Hmm.
uh, Christian conference, for me to go there now is too complicated. It takes too much to
Yep.
sort all of that out. I go to one or two a year, but not on a regular basis. But I would really like
Mhm.
to serve in that capacity and
Nice.
to be around people that are serving in that way
Nice.
because it's just you've been to them. It's just uplifting.
I've been
You learn
going to
so
that one for
much.
24 years,
Oh,
since
that's fantastic.
1999. Just crazy to think
Yeah.
about. But yes, you're
Yeah.
right. There's seasons for that. There are seasons in that 24 years where I didn't get to go because I'm now in Oregon and it's so far away where I used to be able to drive. So yeah, there are seasons. So I'm excited for you, and we're 5 years away from that empty nest. All three of
Oh.
ours are still at home, but are launching next year. One of them. So what does that look like, and in the terms of that story that we're creating, and our priorities, and we could, I think we could do everything that's all about myself,
Mm-hmm.
or I can build a life that's actually about others in some way, some form or fashion, which even running a business and you're employing people, you're, I mean, you're blessing them by it's neat to see how there's so many ways to do that, but
Absolutely. And I did some sales for a little while for a business coaching company. And that's one of the things that we talked about is how many families are you supporting? And
mhm,
if you don't take your business to the next level, are you going to be able to continue to support them? Are
mhm,
you going to be able to continue to support more people? What missions,
mhm.
who are you giving to? So part of my business gives to Young Life because I really
Love it. Yeah.
like their mission of we're not we're not going to the kids that are already in the church. We're going to the kids that are on the fringes, the
Yeah.
ones that may have never heard about us. And when I helped with Awanas, when I taught some Awanas, we saw how kids were taking home their booklets. They're saying, help teach me about scriptures. These are the stories that I'm learning. They're hooking their parents either back in or
Yep.
in for the first
Yep.
time. So that I'm always super excited about ministries like that. And I thought at this stage, I would be doing some of that, but my kids have said you cannot participate in our Young Life. I do not want my mom at youth group or Young
Yeah.
Life or this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. And I get it. They need to have their own lives and their own time. But that's something else I would be interested in. And especially, man, when you talk about Boy Scouts and camping, I think for all genders, but especially for boys, we have seen it all the way through. Get out there, run, yell, throw rocks, sticks, jump up and down, just be
Yep.
free, which they don't get to do very
No,
often.
they don't. Yeah. And we call it outdoor home ec because they also have to cook and clean for themselves and they do all their own.
Yeah.
So us dads will be over here with this like really nice meal because at least one of the dads knows how to cook really well. The boys are over there, especially when they're younger at 11 or 12. It's like, oh my gosh, you're going to eat that? But now they're doing a better job and it's neat to see. And then my daughter loves camping too. And so she does stuff through American Heritage Girls. Is what my
Nice.
wife does that with her. And
Nice.
but that's the stuff of like priorities in a family when, and I'd almost even say when things are going well. When
Mm-hmm.
you're in the midst of the chaos, when you're in the midst of those 20 something months that you were talking about, camping is the last thing. Like other priorities are the last thing. We tend to be in survival mode, just trying to figure out how we're going to put a foot in front of us tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where we
So
need someone to support us.
absolutely. And that's so God was so good. I when all this went down and my husband had to leave the house, we were on 20 acres in December with snow, with 400 chickens, two horses and a dog, and two boys. And a wood stove that was how we heated the house, right?
Yeah.
And this is I needed to go back to work full time. I needed to take the kids into town. We're 22 miles from town. But this is where God is so good. He surrounded me by community that helped
Nice.
me put wood up for the winter, all those types of things. Helped my husband had to rehome all the chickens, so they had to go after a couple months. And then I would come home, get dinner on the table for the kids, go feed the animals, read the bedtime stories, go stoke the fire, and then fall asleep in front of the fire. I was so blessed not to be, because people do really one of two things. They either get into such a depression that they don't function, or they start running around looking for outside humans, outside substance,
Yep.
outside whatever to solve their problems. I had enough and I was tired enough that, I'd have some book I was reading or the Bible or something, and boom, I am out in
Yeah.
front of the fire. And it was the thing that I needed.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. So never put aside the wealth of good feeling from physical work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what the dirt biking is too. I'm
Yep.
sad about the horses, but with the dirt bikes, they're all in storage during the winter. I don't have to worry about them. I don't have to go,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
are the elk coming down to, knock them sideways? Do they have enough to eat? Are they warm enough? The wind
Yep.
is howling. It's raining.
Yep.
There's a lot of relief with that.
Yeah. 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 But so if you think of those people you mentioned earlier about those people that came around you and it came around your family, if you fast forward to now, you're that person. You're basically inviting people, and it looks like you said you work with women.
Yes.
So you're inviting women to come talk with you, to come partner with you. So tell me more about kind of what you do now with that.
Sure. Sure. And this got instilled when we were still in crisis. My sponsor would say to me, Tanya, don't ever underestimate what God's doing, and don't forget other people are watching.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're in a small town, so everybody knew everything. But she said, other people are watching how you're handling this. Even when you don't think they are, you're witnessing to them about how you're choosing to handle this. So that has stuck with me these last 13 years. And what I am doing now is not only sharing that experience, my life experience, but I went back and got my life coaching certification. I went back and did CRAFT, which is community reinforcement training,
Nice.
which has a 70% success rate of getting folks into recovery. So if you have a
Nice.
family member who is really struggling with recovery, I hate to say this because I come from an AA Al-Anon background, they have about a 10% success rate. And truly, whatever method works for you, go do that. But CRAFT really has so I'm a CRAFT trained facilitator.
Nice.
I'm soon going to be an invitation to change trained facilitator as well as the ICF. But what I really have a heart for is you have the opportunity to leave a different legacy. You are not trapped. You are not powerless. You can make these changes. It will take, for most of us, and me included, outside help. So I'm taking, and we haven't even talked about all the other therapy in places, but I'm taking all of that, putting that together and saying, God is the only one that can do the transformation. But like you said earlier, I had to be listening when the counselor said that.
Right.
I also had to surrender when I knew I couldn't change my husband.
Yep.
And again, with my son, I had to surrender. I've been through it this last year too. Had to surrender and say, okay, you are a man, and I need to treat you with that respect. You are no longer my sweet little 5-year-old who will always be in my heart, but this person is asking to be treated like a man. So we just went through another change of living with that adult. So one of the things that I do with women is I help them look at what is really important to them, what matters, what's happening, what's needed, and what's next. And you can take those and apply those to almost any situation and begin to work through it, because oftentimes I had a therapist say this to me. She's like, Tanya, you just got exactly what you wanted and you're still unhappy, because I hadn't really sorted out what it was that I wanted.
Yep.
And that in my model, that's not only what do you want, what does Christ have for you?
Right.
So we're not just running off. And I wanted to speak one more time to self-care, in that I've had women come and say, well, I go get my nails done and I get a massage and I get this and I do that and and I don't feel any better. You don't feel any better because there's no self-compassion. There's no kindness. There's no, this is common to mankind. There's no mindfulness about what's going on. In fact, you're almost more towards the addict end of, I'm going to do this to kind of numb out instead of really heal.
Bingo. That is so critical. So true.
And we work through a process, about 12 weeks. We work through a process, and by the end of that process, you've set the goals, you've set what you want to work on, you've decided where you want to go, because nobody can decide that for you. By the end of that process, we have significantly moved the dial, not because of anything magnificent that I've done, but because we have been steady and co-creating this process with God, and actually taking the time to pause and work through what's really important to you.
Nice. So then where do people need to go to find out more about you?
So what we want to do is, we're going to put this in your show notes, is we've got a quiz. And this is what often happens in an addict family, is often the wife, the mom, the sister, the daughter is doing everything for everybody and her cup is empty.
Yeah.
So we have a quiz on unhelpful help. And let me define that. If you are doing something for somebody that they can do for themselves, or that they don't want done in the first place, which you perceive it needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea around that is to find out how you can do less and connect more. So we're going to put that link down there. That will also lead you to the website, which is Tanya Gioia. We'll put that down there. And then I also have a podcast called Sober on Purpose, which you're going to grace me with an appearance on as well. And that's where talk a lot about. Today we were talking about blame. A couple weeks ago we were talking about shame, talking about forgiveness. All of these are components in every family, but how they get heightened in a family with an addictive behavior situation, it just changes the ball game.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Tanya. It's so great talking with you and getting to know you a little bit and your story. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, Corey, you asked some really wonderful questions. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to the Healing Lives with Corey Gilbert podcast. It has been an honor to serve. If you are struggling, have questions, or in need, Dr. Gilbert offers a free consultation for new clients. Check us out at healinglives.com to book a call. If this has been helpful to you, please share it, leave a review, and help us get the word out so that we can see lives changed, marriages transformed, and more people come into a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. The Healing Lives Center offers online courses, programs, books, intensives, and other services to help you live biblically and well. Discover more resources on YouTube and in Dr. Gilbert's Healing Marriage Facebook group, The Healing Marriage.